So today I had a very good, very deep, inciting discussion with this guest in our midst. We really talked about the position of women in a society. She said something that really touched me. And of course, she has a multicultural aspect of life. She was born here in Germany. She has, from the perspective of European, and also been to Africa and tried to integrate herself with African culture. So she was talking with me and about the position, how people perceive women. Like, is it a must that a woman must marry? Because as for me, where I grew up, marriage is a must for a woman. Like, it's like a social cultural aspect of life. If a woman is trying to outweigh her age, going up to 30 or 35 years, she'll be like, oh, I want to get married. If I don't get married, that nobody is going to respect me in the society. Her response with our discussion last time made me to say, oh, okay, we're going to have a podcast on this. Because she said that, do you think every woman has to marry? And I'm like, of course, it's true. I want you to tell every woman out there what you think about this, because it's not a must that every woman must marry. Sometimes marriage is not a yardstick for measuring the status quo of a woman in a society. There are women who pass through growing up crisis or trauma or something that they look up to their parents and say, oh, my parents were not doing well, therefore I'm not going to bring up a child in this world so as not to face what I faced while growing up. So for you, do you think every woman out there should get married? Or is it something that if you don't have to do it, don't do it? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
For me, I don't know, because for me, how I grew up, my mom always taught me, do whatever makes you happy. So that's the idea I have. My dad never taught me anything. Mm-hmm. He was just a bit silent about it. But from my friends and like my surroundings, mm-hmm. I don't get the idea that I have to marry. Or nobody ever told me I have to marry to accomplish something in life. Like I don't need a man to have a good job, to have a good house, to find some whatever I want, I can get it on my own.
Yeah.
So from this perspective, I'm not used to this idea, but I have seen it.
The idea of you don't need a man or something because you think that you live in a European world where you can have your way around. Mm-hmm. Like I'm talking about money, like money-wise, monetarily. You can have a good job. You can have everything you needed a man for. Is that the reason why you don't want to get married or something? Are you saying you don't want to get married or you don't want to have a child? So I want to get your perspective clearly.
I'm not sure yet if I want to marry. I still trying to figure out what is the whole sense behind it. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's unity, I think. Mm-hmm. But I've also met some people and I've read about people that have not married because they see it as just a concept. Why does it matter if there's a ring around your finger or not? If you love someone deeply, you have this bond. Okay. No matter if it's like a legal bond or just emotionally. Uh-huh. So I'm trying to navigate between this both, but I don't think it's a bad thing to marry.
Okay. You are trying to say that loving someone and to the extent of getting married is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But the legal bound of trying to use a ring to symbolize or trying to use an institution like registry or the church for you is you don't like it. But that is not to say that you don't think about falling in love with somebody and trying to marry the person.
It's just that I think the institution can influence us in a way that so many people here marry because of taxes. They want want to have their money back. And if you're married, you're in a different class of paying taxes. You pay less taxes if you're married.
Or if you're married officially?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I hear that all the time when I was a kid. I was like, that's not nice. I think if you marry, then marry out of love. But I think also people who marry for taxes have their point because you can get a lot of money back. But then I think again, it goes so far from the initial idea of love.
Okay.
That I don't know what I should think about it. Like, I don't feel like I don't want to judge because I'm not in the position also right now. I'm not in a position where I'm thinking about marriage, but also if other people do it, it's fine. But I don't know for myself if I would want that to be the reason why I marry one day.
Should we say that the government is trying to use the reduction of taxes to encourage the young people to get married or what? Is that what it means? Or is there any reason why the government has to allow married people to pay less of a tax? I'm talking about Steuern.
Yeah, Steuern. That's what I was thinking about before. Because what's the motivation to give you tax reduction when you enter the state of marriage? Why? Okay, probably now I'm just not well informed also. If you're married, maybe you have kids, you have higher expenses. I've never looked at it from that side, just from, brief thoughts about it. I feel like the state is also having influence on your behavior and your desires. And the fact that you have advantages from marrying. I feel like it's hard to say what is a free decision and what's not. Like, in the end, how do you want to know if it was your decision that you really want to marry or it was your decision influenced?
From what I got from all you have said, for you, marriage is not a must. It's something that has to be based on individual. If you see somebody that you like, and you love the person, and if two of you decide to get married, then you do it. You're not doing it for the institution or for the taxes or for acknowledgement or something, or just to satisfy the community or your parents who wants you to get married. But for you, because culturally, like, we see having children outside marriage as a mark of irresponsibility. So how is it for you people here? How do you see when a woman go about getting a child outside marriage? What is it like here?
I have not really met people in my social environment that have had a baby without partner, without marriage. So I'm not sure if I can talk about it. But from the liberal view I grew up with, it would be okay.
It would be okay for somebody to have a child outside marriage.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about having a boyfriend. No. Together, because somebody told me one joke here, like most people here, they have a new girlfriend, they buy a dog to see if two of them can actually train this dog. Before you could know it, they start having children.
Yeah, it's true. My sister did
Okay.
it.
Okay. So what I'm saying is it is not a must that having a child outside marriage represents mark of irresponsibility. For us and for people, I'm not generalizing, but people, especially in Africa, West Africa, they have this kind of situation as mark of irresponsibility, because as a man, you love a woman, you go straight to the parents and you say, oh, I saw a beautiful flower, I want to come and pluck it from your house. Then it means that you want to really marry this person. And they see it as an honor that this is a good man, he came straight to marry somebody. Okay. But what about a woman here in the Western world? You decide to stay alone because you have a good job, you can afford anything you think you can afford. How do you go about trying to have a child? How will you get a child? Because are you going to do IVF to have a child, or is it that you can just live forever without a child? Because some people say that having a child is golden, because as you are young today, very soon you're going to get old. You need someone to take after you. What do you think about this?
You mean what I think about having a child that can take care of me?
Yeah, having a child generally.
It also depends on your viewpoint. I'm not coming from a religious viewpoint. I was not marked by religious. Whatever religious, I didn't grow up with it. So probably the Christian Germans would tell you another thing that from what I would tell you. But I don't know what brings you happiness in life. It can be a child. Maybe it can also be a good job, or just having very good friends or a good partner. It's not really a must that you have a child. I think you can find fulfillment without a child, because it is also being a parent is not so easy. The kid, no matter if you planned it or not, it deserves all the most respect you can give. It can, and not respect, but love. It deserves your care and your time. And if you are not willing to do that and to give that to a kid, then you don't have to get one. If you know you will not be really able to take care of that kid, maybe it's worth a second thought if you have it, if you're going to have it.
Okay. For you, having a child is responsibility. And when you are not ready for this responsibility, there is no point in having a child. Okay. So how do you intend to do this? Because friends and folks can leave you behind. Let's say you have a good job, it makes you happy at the moment. Tomorrow you can lose the job. We're talking about sustainability, because when you have an offspring, you will always I'm not saying that there are no cases where people have children and the kids disappointed their parents, but I'm saying that average, the children will always remember that, oh, I have a mother, I have a father. Because we're talking about on the long run, we have full life right now. We can do anything we want. We're looking at the future. So what do you have to say about this?
I'm the youngest child, and I've not been really in contact with other families that have child at a young age or something. I don't know, maybe it's also different because I don't even know where to start.
You rely on your job, you rely on your friends, you rely on traveling as what gives you happiness. Germans would say momentan, like the immediate. Like what about the long run? When you clock 60, 65, possibly you start having toothaches, sight problems, health problem. Of course, we live in the Western world where individualism still proliferates over the society. I know there are institutions here, old people's home, to take care of old people. But a lot of people still would prefer to be catered for, to be cared for by their children. So what do you think would happen to you should, in case you never had a child, now that you have the time or the possibility, because you are trying to tell us that you have decided that you're not going to have a child? Because Is that not what you said?
No.
Okay. So I was thinking you said that it's not a must for you to have a child.
Yeah, but I will still find out if I want one or when I want one.
Okay. So, but what do you tell women who have concluded that they're not going to have a child?
I mean, if it suits them, that's fine. Like, I would not impose a kid on someone or a baby that doesn't want it. And the thing with like social security, like the system in Germany is really weird. Like, officially you're cared for because you have Rente. You can go into the Altersheim. Like my grandma, she had to go to one of these houses, even though we didn't want to give her to the people. But somehow it was a bit of a difficult situation because she got more sick. So my grandma could not live alone anymore, and we were not able to care for her so much that we could prevent her from going to this house, to old people's house. Because the system wants you to work all the time. There's no possibility for you to take care of like a person that needs this everyday care of like from waking up to going to bed. You can just not give that care because you're so into the system of working and making money. So even if I have 5 kids, I know they will probably not be able to take care of me later. Because that's just what I see. I saw it with my grandma, with all the other old people in these houses. And these houses are also expensive. It's just crazy. There's also for you as the kid, there's nothing really to do because you cannot give that work, like this care work, because you have to care for yourself. Yeah, it's just like this. You need to make money to pay your bills. You cannot just
sit there and say you are caring for somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you see is that judging by the society you were born, how you saw your grannies, how you saw them survive their old age, you come to a conclusion that the system here made it almost impossible to sit around and say that you are taking care of an old person. The system is programmed in such a way that you will always do something to pay your bills. And also, the system put some things in place to take care of these people, which you see as not enough though. But based on what you have seen, you are not programming your life expecting that a child is going to help you tomorrow because you saw your grandmothers, how nobody cared for them. Okay.
Also, we don't stay in one household. Like mostly we don't stay with our grandmothers or grandparents. I think very often they have their own houses, like flats, apartments, until this time when they get too old, to be on themselves, where they rely on this care. So you don't even stay together. It's really different, I think, because they're not around you and they're not part of your life, of your everyday life. They kind of do their own life as long as they can. Of course, they're involved in your life and you're involved in their life, but at one point, most of the times it wouldn't work that they move back to you. Or for example, in my family, we moved to my grandma because she was old and she has lost her kids, like my uncles. So we moved back to support her, but my mom and her were like fire and water.
Oh, okay.
And my mom was saying, I'm like, I'm like 45 years old or I'm 50 years old and I have to move back to my mom and feel like back then I traveled in time and back to like childhood and I have to, deal with your parent all the time.
So she didn't really like the idea of taking care of her old mother that needed help.
No, it's not about liking, like we didn't see another option. So we moved back to my grandma to support her, but both didn't like it. It was just arguing, not only, but there was arguing and there were different opinions and you're like an adult, you have established a way of living, a way of doing things. You want to keep that like autonomous way of doing your things. So both were not happy. And then my grandma moved out for some years and then now when she got sick and...
So, we started this podcast or this video in a rush because I didn't really introduce you properly to our audience. You will introduce yourself and tell your audience the names. But one thing I would say, if there are a good activist I have known in this place, I would say you are one because you advocate for the voiceless and you try to seek equality, not just for women. And that is what made you very, very suitable for this kind of discussion. So after you introduce yourself to the people, I have a question, which is, what is your advice to women, number one, who feel very demoralized, thinking that they are running out of time because of age? What would be your advice to them about marriage, number one? What would be your advice to the people who looked at their life and say, well, they are not in the position to raise a kid and therefore decided not to have children? What would be your advice? What would be your encouragement to these people? So these are my two questions I have for you.
Thank you, first of all. And my name is Rachel Owusu. I'm 24 years old already. And I was born in Germany on the sides of like Cologne in a village, which was an interesting experience. And my dad is from Ghana, so that makes me like mixed. I'm German and Ghanaian, which comes with a lot of issues, but also possibilities. And today, also das Leben hat mich nach Bayreuth gebracht.
Sure, yeah.
Talking about life.
So many ladies in Africa or in Nigeria, to be precise, they cry, their parents insult them and say, you are an old school. You have to go and look for a man. They cry every time. They fall vulnerable to so many men because men look at their age and say, they're very old, and therefore they take advantage of them. So what would be your advice to these women? Yeah.
I feel like I'm not in the position to give the woman in Nigeria advice because the realities are just different. If I tell them now, don't worry, you don't need a husband, but reality shows them that if you don't have a husband, this and this will not work, then that's it. It's just like, it is always like connected to the context.
Yeah, different situation, yeah.
Yeah, but I would always like, for women, it's sometimes difficult to be aware of your potential, of your value, because I have not experienced it because I'm still young, but older women may feel like they're losing their value because of men, like maybe less, not only making it depending on men, but society gives you less attention the older you are. It's like, but I feel that it can be like getting durchsichtig.
Your time passes. You wither like a flower.
Yeah, that's a good
exactly
metaphor.
The situation, yeah.
And if that is what society communicates you, it's hard to like resist that idea of yourself. So the context is really different.
If it will be here, like in this different context, what would be your advice to the women? Like also, there are women here also who live in the Western world, who also think from the perspective of age, like they are getting old and therefore menopause, a lot of things are knocking on their doors. They don't have a man. So what would be your advice? You narrow it down to your own context in the Western world. What would be your advice?
From just the message I grew up with was to not like let somebody else decide my worth. If you really want to marry, you will find someone, I think. But I understand that some women really want to marry. That's their dream, that this is their idea of being happy. So just saying, don't worry or trust the process isn't going to work. Maybe I can just say my fear for the future is that, like, I would not want to lower my expectations or my standards and what I look for in a person just because time is running.
Okay.
And sometimes I wonder if people do that just because they want to find the right partner. You see, maybe when you are really young, like 20 years old, you can be together with someone for 7 years and then decide, oh yeah, this is the right person I want to marry. But when you start dating the right person with maybe 32, you will not give, maybe, that's just what I think, give yourself that much time to be really sure about someone, because you know, okay, time is running, like biology. So it's tricky to like get what you want and make sure you get something that is good for you at the same time, because you have to rush at some point.
What you try to say is also very important, because there are women who like, for example, honest man. That is their test for a man. Vice versa, like a woman also. But because of the time, she used to like this when she was 22. But because she is running out of time, she's 30 or 32, she say, oh, anyone that comes to my way, I will just accept it because I don't have time again to start making preference. But in your own case, you say that you don't allow the situation at hand to decide for you. Cannot lower your standard for choice based on the situation you find yourself or because you are growing older. Okay, fine. The second question is about the issue of childbearing. Let's start from the Western world. Women who don't want to have children, but they face pressure from their family, like their father or their brothers, the mother saying, I want a grandchild. How do you think they can manage this situation?
This is also hard to say for me because my friends are like my age and younger, and the people I know don't get that pressure from their families. So I don't know how it feels like to be pressured by your family into being like always asked the questions of when will you marry, when will you have a child, you're old, whatever. I can't really tell. I think it's easy to say it if you're not in the position. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I can satisfy you with my answer.
No, yeah.
It's true that parents know more than us. Yeah, I think so, because they have more experience. They know us best. Like they've known us for so many years. I think they don't have bad intentions for what they advise us to do exactly. But in the end, you should not do what you don't want, I think. So if you get pressure, but you really know you don't want that, what you're pressured for, then you need to find a way to get out of that situation, or to like find a way to communicate that. Because in the end, it's you with the baby. It's not like it's them with the grandkid, but it's you with the baby. And yes, I think for me, it's mostly responsibilities. And if you're not ready, then you should not do it. Like, no matter how much pressure is coming. I don't know what to do in this situation because I've never received or experienced that pressure. I don't know how people do that with their families.
That's a very good answer. So right now we round up by conclusion. You try to tell us that marriage is not a do or die affair, that you go into marriage because of love. You don't need to, because of the church says you should marry, therefore you go to marriage. For you, love is an agreement between two people. So you talk about as well that for now, you're still a young person. Marriage is not the most priority for you. That on the long run, you can still change your mind. But now you never thought about getting married. Secondly, about children, having kids for you is a full-time responsibility. That if someone is not ready for this responsibility, he shouldn't go into having children. And for you also, based on also what you passed through in life, that it made you to have a position that you don't want to have a child. Even though you didn't tell us in details, but we want to share, it's okay. Then you talk about having children to take care of you in the old age is something that you have seen that never worked in your own context because you saw your grannies, how they managed their old age. And also for you, people who feel pressure, like especially from the Western side, people who feel pressured because their parents want to have grandchildren. You said it in a way that, okay, at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on your shoulder as the direct parents, not the grandmothers and grandfathers. So, and also you try to differentiate the two different types of context. You say that the advice you're going to give to women in Nigeria, for example, is not the advice you give to women in Germany, because different context in terms of marriage. If the society calls for them to get married so early or to be dependent on their husbands, why not? Because it's a different situation. But for here in Germany, women don't have to hurry or look up to man for marriage in anything, because the system has a provision for every woman. That either you have a job, there are institutions that make sure that women are taken care of. So in this case, they don't have any reason to run helter-skelter for marriage. So I'm so glad that you honor this invitation, and I hope we see more of you here. So do you have anything to share to our audience before we go?
Yes, I have some thoughts. I think my standpoint is a bit rare. Mm-hmm. I have not, except of my closest friends and maybe the students bubble I'm part of and inside, I know many people or many young people that want to marry. It's their goal, their long-term goal, to find that partner with whom you can have that nice marriage that you dream of. Mm-hmm. So it's not really representative what I say for the rest of the country or the rest of other young people. And I was also thinking of sharing my thoughts. Sometimes you talk about it with friends, or me, I talk about it with friends. Do I want children or not? I don't know. I just know you need to be there for them 24/7, and you need to function, and you need to just be a good parent, and you need to be ready for that. And sometimes people ask me if I want kids, and I say, I don't know, I'm not sure. And now I realize that it's maybe not about having kids. Maybe the question for me is about bearing kids, bringing them to the world. Because it's a different thing, I would say, for men. If I ask you, do you want to have a kid? And you say yes, then you don't have to go through any physical pain or experience or change or an emotional change to have that kid. You will have a woman that bears the kid for you, and then you're a father, then you have a kid. But for a woman, it's not just having a kid, it's going through this whole 9 months of the process of the kid growing, and then maybe longer after you have the baby and your body is recovered. It's such a long process which can have a lot of complications, and it's just exhausting, and it's not easy, it's really hard.
Having a child for you means different things. You can, for example, you can make an adoption. So it's not only the case of giving birth biologically for you, okay?
But I think it's also connected to, some people say blood is thicker than water. I don't agree. Okay. Because this is not my experience with my family. It is not this unconditional love, support, all these things. I didn't experience that strong. So for me, my bonds with friends are stronger. Except if you take out the parents. But for siblings, I cannot
say that this is your religion. Okay, blood is thicker than water. I've heard about it. I think we have to draw the curtain from here. That was a very wonderful discussion today. Yeah. So, and I hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.